Alright, second time filming this. Whew. Okay. Frutiger Aero, the aesthetic created by corporate tech companies in the early 2000s to the early 2010s. This aesthetic promised growth, innovation, community, and an overall sense of optimism. Was this a promise of a future that never lived up to its potential? Or was it simply a comforting aesthetic that helped move people to adapt to new innovative technologies? Hi, my name's Athena, and this is the Aesthetics Report, and I'll be your guide to the wonderful world of Frutiger Aero. If this video found you, you're probably here for one of three reasons. 1, you have no idea what Frutiger Aero is. That's okay, I'll tell you. 2, you love Frutiger Aero and want to learn more. In which case, I am so happy to have you here. And number 3, it's 3 a.m. You've been asleep for a while, and YouTube autoplay just plays some really weird. So let's get started, shall we? Before we talk about Frutiger Aero, we need to learn a little bit about its older sibling, Vaporwave. Perhaps the OG internet aesthetic. And when I say it in quotes like this, I mean because aesthetics before the rise of the internet and social media really weren't thought of in the same way. So we have to take that nuance into context. Either you remember Vaporwave from living through it, or you remember it like I did, through the revival in the mid-2010s. And it really was a revival because the music came back, the imagery came back, but it was more in a digital, almost ironic kind of way. Vaporwave took good use of the new synths in music, lighting technologies, as well as the very earliest renderings of 3D imaging that you could do on computers. Vaporwave was one of the first you could find on the internet in terms of aesthetics, because the internet was new and it was just starting to develop. By the early 2000s, the internet was not just developing anymore, but it was blooming and exploding into something we had never seen before. For the first time, the internet could be stored in your pocket, with the use of mobile phones, which were quickly becoming more and more widespread. People were starting to get their own laptops at a faster rate than ever before. Computers were faster, better designed, and could display graphics like no one had ever seen. Screens were becoming thinner and had better displays. And, well, many people were excited for this, and they had every reason to be. But beyond that excitement, there was a lot of hesitancy from a lot of people, especially the older generations. It was a lot at once, and the companies behind all this innovation knew that. These companies needed to create a set of design phases that would allow the ever-growing internet-using population to become comfortable with all of the new, quickly developing technologies. Something that felt community-oriented, nature-inspired, and overall gave the people a sense of optimism and hope in the wake of these new and somewhat scary technologies. Enter Frutiger Aero. Frutiger Aero is a combination of the words Frutiger, from Adrian Frutiger, and Aero, the design face for Windows Vista. Frutiger Aero technically started in 2003 and ended in 2014, but you could still feel some of its effects on both tail ends of that time period. Who was Adrian Frutiger? And what's Windows Vista? For those of you who don't know, Adrian Frutiger was a designer who invented the Frutiger typeface in the 1970s. He had a lot of other typefaces, but this one was his namesake, and he developed it primarily because he wanted something that was human-oriented and easy to read, and he really hated Helvetica. This font can still be widely seen in airports today, but in terms of the aesthetic, it was pretty much what everyone used. Windows Vista, or also known as Longhorn for you tech nerds out there, was a Windows software that'd been in development for almost 6 years and was finally finished in 2006. It focused on clear, glassy windows, realistic buttons with gradients, and overall had an effervescent, nature-centered theme. But those two things don't really describe much, so what exactly makes up the Frutiger Aero aesthetic? Although there are many branches of the Frutiger Aero family tree, Frutiger Aero itself is made of specific colors, motifs, sounds, and overall moods. Let's start with the Frutiger Aero color palette. Frutiger Aero's color palette can best be described in one image. You mean this one? Yep, that's the one. That image is one of the most viewed images in the world, and perhaps the poster child for Frutiger Aero. This photograph, titled Bliss, was taken by Charles O'Rear in California in 1998. He was driving to go see his girlfriend, and he saw such a beautiful hill he had to just get out and take a photo. Good job, Charles. You took one of the most famous photos of all time. The main colors of this aesthetic are most vibrant shades of green, most vibrant shades of blue, yellow, orange, and white. Occasionally, you can see colors like gray when it comes to the tech that appears in the aesthetic, and other colors will make an appearance, but they're not as common. Now that we know the main colors of the aesthetic, what are some of the motifs? And also, what is a motif? To put it plainly, a motif is reoccurring imagery through a body of work. Usually, you would see the word motif used in art galleries or a specific artist doing the same thing throughout their work, or even in a book. But today, we're going to be using that word to talk about the reoccurring objects and themes within the aesthetic. Frutiger Aero motifs are including, but not limited to, grassy hills, water in all forms, including waves, drops, ponds, you name it. Close-ups of plants, such as flowers, bokeh-style lights, which that is those little circle things that you see in photography everywhere, light leaks, which is this type of light in photography, imagery combining nature and technology, futuristic-looking cities with organic lines, and again, with more nature, glossy transparent shapes, and skeuomorphism. Skeuomorphism? What is skeuomorphism? Skeuomorphism is the practice of taking digital objects and making them as realistic and detailed as their in-real-life counterparts. For example, a clock app on a Frutiger Aero device would look like a clock. One of my personal favorites is the old YouTube app on the iPhone, pre-iOS 7. And it looks like this, a little 1960s TV. I wish they would change it back. Skeuomorphism was not just popular during this era, it was pretty much all there was. There was not flat minimalistic designs to be seen anywhere. This type of iconography made it easier for people who were adopting technology for the very first time. Technology and corporations using technology were some of the first adopters of the aesthetic, but that doesn't mean it stopped there. There are whole genres of music that fall underneath the Frutiger Aero aesthetic umbrella, but the background of this video is reminiscent of Frutiger Aero music. One of the most popular and well-known examples, even if not recognized, is some of C418, or the person who made the original Minecraft soundtracks, music. Yeah, that's Frutiger Aero. Frutiger Aero could and can still be seen in various forms of architecture today. From the obvious ones like the Nintendo and the Apple stores of the late 2000s and early 2010s, to the less thought about ones like dental offices from the time or froyo shops. I personally believe froyo was a huge part of Frutiger Aero and even Frutiger Metro's aesthetic. Those shops screamed both of those aesthetics, and it was a craze that you really had to be there for. I don't know why that stopped, and I honestly don't know what took its place. Please comment below and let me know what everyone is going to get on a Friday night. Some other weird places that you might have seen Frutiger Aero is if you had that one friend and their parents had that under the sea themed bathroom, or even those little soft soap bottles with the fish and the animals on them. Those are definitely Frutiger Aero. Those fish lamps that went around and around, that is too. Toys like the iDog, TV shows like Wow Wow Wubsy, and even a place such as Calgary, Canada has Frutiger Aero vibes to this day. Frutiger Aero was seen in media everywhere. One of the most influential companies in the Frutiger Aero aesthetic was Nintendo. From the DS to the Wii U, and even some parts of the Switch today are all Frutiger Aero. The Wii console was basically just a Frutiger Aero console. The menu had glossy, sheer, modern for the time elements, the music, the nature and community-inspired games. Some of the other consoles of the time also had those vibes as well. But Nintendo definitely wins in that category. Frutiger Aero wasn't always called Frutiger Aero though. I was just a very small child when Frutiger Aero started, and it ended around the time I entered high school. They didn't really call it anything. It mostly just was how things looked. Outside of small niche circles, most people didn't really think about aesthetics in the same way that they do now, where everything is so neatly labeled and widespread. People, of course, had their personal styles, and that was very important to them, and there were subcultures. But an aesthetic is different than a subculture, and I will get into that on another video much later. This is because social media was not nearly the thing it is today. Towards the end of Frutiger Aero, things like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter became popular. But at the beginning of Frutiger Aero, there was really things like MySpace to replace the old AOL, and things really didn't travel just that fast. Frutiger Aero was not named until Sophie Lee from the Consumer Aesthetics Research Institute, or CARI, named it in 2017. People also like to call this aesthetic Web 2.0 gloss. If Frutiger Aero was so popular, what happened to it? I could say the same thing that happened to Vaporwave. And I could say people just got tired of it. But that wouldn't be the whole truth. Aesthetics, especially ones that are centered around tech and innovation, are always up for change. These companies realized that most people were already comfortable with the technology that was new just a few years ago. And at this point, they had already done everything they could to show the innovation in terms of display, color, detail, and graphics. They were looking for new ways to innovate, efficiency, power, speed. And to make these changes, they decided to cut back on some of the detail and the gloss and started using more flat imagery. The world also got a lot faster around this point. And to put it quite bluntly, they probably realized they didn't need to try as hard because people were going to buy this stuff anyway. I mean, that is the bottom line at the end of the day. So Frutiger Aero quietly slipped into the shadows, letting its, in my opinion, cooler baby sibling shine for a mere second, Frutiger Metro. And then its absolute loser of a baby sibling took the main stage, corporate Memphis. I don't want to talk a lot about corporate Memphis because it's just really not worth the oxygen in my lungs. But to say as short and sweet as possible, corporate Memphis is this photo, and unfortunately, this horrifying and still lives in my nightmares ad from Grubhub. And thankfully, just like Frutiger Aero, this aesthetic has reached the time where it's come to the chopping block. And who knows where we're headed next? I also believe, and this is the optimistic part of me, that people want a change. People want something original and fresh and inspired. They want to feel like a community again. And we just might see that with a Frutiger Aero revival of its own. Kind of like how Vaporwave had that beautiful revival almost 20 years later in the 2000 teens. Whatever comes next, I hope that it's full of inspiration, life, inspires community, and hopefully not sad and beige. So, was Frutiger Aero really the future that we were promised and never got? Or was it a beautiful present that we got to enjoy while we had it? I'll leave that one up to you. Thank you so much for watching this video. This was the first of hopefully many, and I hope to continue sharing all of my love and passion for aesthetics, design, and all related topics with you. This has been the Aesthetics Report. I hope you have a day just as beautiful as you are. All right, my friends. Bye. Hi, my name is Athena. Hi, my name is Athena. Hi, my name's Athena. Hello, my name is Athena. Hello, my name is Athena.